If you're in marketing or sales ops and you're like me, not a day goes by when someone doesn't ask you about integrating LinkedIn into your marketing or sales tech stack. So there's a lot of options here and there's a lot of roads to go down. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 ways to think about integrating LinkedIn into your marketing tech stack, specifically with HubSpot, which is what we use, but this can probably apply to other CRMs as well. So integrating LinkedIn with your CRM is all about making things easier for the sales team in order for them to connect to the people and ultimately build those relationships that may lead to sales. So one of the first things I like to do is create this LinkedIn search URL field. So this is going to apply whether or not you actually have Sales Navigator, which is going to be one of the things that you might need for the other things I'll talk about. But if your team just needs to quickly actually get the lead in and then go over to LinkedIn and connect with them, because let's say there's a task that they're assigned in a sequence, or maybe that's something that they have as part of their cadence, this LinkedIn search URL is something you can build using workflow. So this is what it looks like. You're just simply having their first name, last name known, and then their company known. So that's the enrollment trigger here for this specific workflow. And then once they meet that, you're going to go ahead and have this search URL created. You're going to edit the record and you're going to set this property using these specific tokens. And then because that's going to need to be reformatted, you're going to format the data in the next step and then go ahead and edit that record to include that formatted data. So when it does come back, then what it looks like is this. And so imagine every lead that comes into your CRM, you actually have this string automatically populated because every new lead runs through this workflow if they're matching a first name, last name, company. And then as you can see, I'll click this little arrow and then we actually have it go right to a search. And again, it's using the keywords in the name, but because Ben's name is so unique, it's actually popping up here on the screen. And then if I wasn't already connected, I might go ahead and connect with him here. The second thing I like to do is use the LinkedIn Sales Navigator installation of the app in the HubSpot ecosystem. And then that's going to give you the record on the right-hand side, assuming that the information presented in the record when it comes through is going to match the information on the record. If it doesn't match, there's going to be an option to find that person right here in the interface and match them. You can see we've got Ben already matched here. And so I could actually have, if I'm in a sales capacity or if you're coaching your team in a sales capacity, you may then choose to save them in Sales Navigator. Again, how you talk about setting up lists and tracking the activity of those leads over in Sales Navigator, then you can also go right here and view his profile. So again, this will take you right into the LinkedIn Sales Navigator interface. So you don't have to actually then open a new browser or open a new tab and do all of that stuff manually. Now, the other thing you can do here is send InMails. So if I wasn't connected to Ben already, I can actually send a connection request right from the Sales Navigator inside this sidebar in HubSpot. But if I wanted to send an InMail, I would actually send that right here. And then that's going to go ahead and get sent without me having to leave the HubSpot interface. Now, a drawback of the LinkedIn integration, if you don't have LinkedIn Sales Navigator of the utmost premium version, and then also HubSpot Sales Enterprise is the only place this is possible, you can log that activity, but if you don't have those two, you're going to have to go up to here and go ahead and log a LinkedIn message. So that is one drawback, but I'm going to show you a tool that does make that easier. Now, the other thing I like to do here, so step number 3 is actually creating the LinkedIn profile URL field inside of HubSpot and populating that with external data. So again, if I happen to have a sequence and the task is I want someone to connect with them on LinkedIn, maybe this isn't going to be applicable, but this is the direct URL to their record. So to do that, I use Zapier, and we're going to use a HubSpot new contact and list. So when you populate this step, you'll see that we're going to go ahead and find the fields. We've got a list of anybody that hits our website that was created as a result of a tool called Warmly that we're using. And then we would port this over to Apollo and have the system where Zapier use the API to go find the contact in Apollo and then actually find the contact's LinkedIn information. So then we would test that and find the information here. And then to update that contact, we're going to jump back over to HubSpot. We're going to update the contact based on the information that we found over in Apollo. There we go. LinkedIn URL is here. And then when that runs, that goes ahead and ports all that information back to our LinkedIn profile URL. So a way you might think about using this, let's say you're setting up sequences for your team, and I'm just going to use this as a quick example. So to activate this, let's say that you're actually creating a sequence for someone on your team to connect with them as a connection request. If I don't use that field that I just showed you and we have no personalization token here, they're just going to get send a connection request as a task. So that's fine, but then they're going to have to go search for them on LinkedIn. If you populate that field in HubSpot and then use this LinkedIn URL in the task, they get the task, it auto-populates, and they can just click into the task, see the record that they're looking for, click right over and connect. So if you don't have an automation software that's kind of playing the two together, this is a good application to make it easier for your sales team. Now, I like to use this when we're doing, let's say, a webinar, and we want everyone who attended the webinar and was actively engaged to be connected with on the sales front. And so we might just actually move those folks to a static list and then have that static list populate over here. Now, the key thing to keep in mind is here when you do use Zapier in this regard, this has to be a static list. So you do need to use a workflow to put someone into a static list. It's not going to be active list populated. So the fourth way that I like to make this actionable is, let's say that I wanted to actually automate the external connection with webinar registrants. And so I use a tool called Phantom Buster. There's a lot of other tools on the market that could do this. We would move folks who registered for the webinar into a very specific list. We'd go ahead and do this enrichment because we need that piece there. And then the next step that I would take is actually take this entire list and move it to a Google Sheet. So once you have that to a Google Sheet and you would sync it with this external tool, then you would paste the open shareable link, like view only, into this Phantom Buster tool, and you can set it to auto connect with people based on a specific time per day and whatever else you want to set here. So again, this is a much more complicated process if you're doing this for entire people and entire teams. But if you happen to be doing any sort of growth marketing and this is something you want to test, this is going to be a good way to do that. Now, the last automation trick, getting this into your marketing and tech stack, is going to be finding tools that make it easier for your sales team to prospect and know whether or not someone's already in your CRM or they're already in things and you want to activate them into, let's say, a sequence. And so I've got two tools on the screen here that may be possible because both are actually linked to HubSpot. And so we've got add to CRM. So I'm looking at a record right now that someone is not in our CRM yet, and this happens to be called Surf. And so I could actually add them as a deal, which for me, I really like this because sometimes I'll get people who inquire about our services and are ready to book a meeting right from LinkedIn. So I want to go ahead and add them as a contact and a deal right inside of LinkedIn. And then for this particular tool called HubLead, you can then create the contact. And then one of the things that HubLead makes possible is the ability to track that data back in your HubSpot CRM. So some of the tools in the marketplace, again, HubLead's one of them that will actually link your activity you're doing on LinkedIn back into the CRM. This is one of the few. I know a lot of the tools do connections, but being able to report on that in your marketing tech stack can be a challenge. So for this particular tool, if you're using the HubLead integration and your sales team is actually sending messages back and forth and the records originate in HubSpot, you can actually report on that activity. So you can see that we sent 9 messages this day, 3, 2, and then in this case, how many connection requests did I send in this particular period? 20, and then we've got 1, 1, and 1. So in terms of helping your team support that activity and reporting on it, these external tools are going to be a powerful thing in your toolbox. But again, there's a lot of them, so definitely test out what you're looking for first. So to recap, the 5 things you might want to consider to elevate this and get LinkedIn into your marketing tech stack would be: number 1, create that auto search field on a contact record that then is populated based on that search string to make it easier for your sales team. Again, you don't have to have Sales Navigator to actually, have that be beneficial to your team. Secondly, you want to get the Sales Navigator plugin or the app integrated into your HubSpot if you haven't already. Again, stipulations there. There may be some things. If you don't have access to Sales Nav or you don't have Sales Pro or higher, that's going to be a stipulation. Number 3, making sure that you get that URL specific to the contact record, pulling that through Zapier from an Apollo or a third-party data enrichment source. Inside of HubSpot, you now probably have that through Breeze AI, but if again, you're not paying for that and you want to use an external tool, that's possible. Number 4, actually including the automation inside a lot of the tools like Phantom Buster, where you're doing the automation to connect directly with those folks from a list in HubSpot. And then the 5th one would be custom tools that make it easier for your sales team to prospect and actually report on that right inside of HubSpot, like we discussed here with HubLead. Hopefully that's helpful. Lots and lots of opportunity with LinkedIn, and hopefully we'll be back with another video like this for you soon.